Hey everybody, welcome back to BobkeTV. Time once again for the Broom Wagon, and a lot to report on: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tour of Hainan, Tour of Abu Dhabi, and the Japan Cup all going on. Also, of course, Musette Musings, and one final swan song for the Tinkoff squad, provided by none other than Alberto Contador. All of that and much more on the Broom Wagon. All right, everybody, let's get back into the Broom Wagon. Let's start off with the good. Mark Cavendish ending his road racing season on a high note with 2 stage wins in the Tour of Abu Dhabi. The second one, stage 2, excuse me, his 9th win of the year, which is pretty remarkable considering he spent a lot of the year racing and training on the track to get ready for the Omnium at the Olympics in Rio. But coming up aces at the Abu Dhabi Tour, Mark Cavendish beating Elia Viviani, who, by the way, beat him for the Omnium title at the Olympics. Viviani had a perfect lead out from his teammates on Team Sky, but Cavendish uncorked one on stage 2, blistering speed, Cav just as fast as ever, overhauling Viviani in the last few meters for a great stage win. Replicated that on stage number 4 2 days later, and won the green jersey as well, the green jersey points competition at the Tour of Abu Dhabi. And Mark Cavendish has had a pretty spectacular year. 4 stage wins in the Tour de France, bringing him up to 30 and within striking distance of the great, maybe the greatest of all time, Eddy Merckx, who has 34 stage wins at the Tour. Cavendish breathing down his neck and most certainly will equal or surpass Eddy Merckx in the next couple of seasons if Cavendish continues to sprint the way he has done this year. Didn't quite fulfill his dream of the 3, remember, way back in the springtime, yellow, gold, and rainbows. Did get the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, but was second in the Omnium in the Olympics and second in the World Road Race Championships to a flying Peter Sagan. But it's been a pretty spectacular year for Mark Cavendish. Very versatile. Very tough to go from the track to the road and back a number of times during the season. But Cavendish is so competitive and had, honestly, a great season. So congratulations to Mark Cavendish. And I'm sure he will be back to his winning ways next year. And watch for him to get very close, if not equal, to Eddy Merckx in the upcoming Tour de France for stage wins. 9 opportunities for the sprinters in this next Tour de France starting in Dusseldorf, Germany, next July. Also the good, Giacomo Nizzolo of the Trek Segafredo squad, current road racing champion of Italy, won stage number 1 in the Abu Dhabi Tour. Brilliant win from the sprinter on the Trek squad, suggesting that he's capable of winning a lot more in the future if Trek dedicates some lead-out men to his chances in the races throughout the calendar. So Nizzolo having a good year and came up with the goods on stage number 1 in the Tour of Abu Dhabi. Impressive, especially considering the quality of the field there. Davide Villela of Cannondale delivering in the Japan Cup a win for the Cannondale squad. I have criticized him in the past, especially during the Vuelta, when it seemed to me like they were racing for the wrong people during the Vuelta stages and didn't come up with any stage wins in last year's Vuelta. But Villela gets his first win as a professional. Impressive ride by the Italian on the Cannondale squad. And let's hope that Cannondale, who were very close on a number of stages throughout this year, gets that little bit of an improvement over next year. And those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th places, top 10s, turn into wins in the upcoming season. The bad, Max Walscheid of the Giant Squad, Tour of Hainan, had a stage win in the bag and started doing this a little bit too early. Celebrating in a field sprint before you actually win is a recipe for losing. And that's exactly what happened. Rafael Adriato coming around him at the last possible moment for a pretty emphatic stage win. Walscheid did go on stage number 3 to win the stage. That was not without controversy either, as he braked, and you can see it on this video, as he braked to go back and return to the podium protocol. 2 lamprey riders, perhaps taking their eye off the ball for a moment. Mahorik is the rider that clips the wheel of Walscheid and goes down. Nobody hurt on that, at least not too damaging of a crash, but sometimes you win and it still doesn't go as smoothly as you imagine. But Walscheid gets the race lead. That's a 9-stage race, the Tour of Hainan. Some very tough mountain climbs to come in that stage race, and perhaps the rest of the stages on next week's Broom Wagon. The ugly. Unfortunately, the motorcycles and the caravan of vehicles that are around bike races are continuing to cause problems. This time is the Chronos de Nation and the racer Ashley Moolman-Pazio from South Africa. I believe she races for the Big Le Cervelo squad. Crashing into a motorcycle that was parked in the middle of a roundabout while she was racing. And this has been a problem since the beginning of BobkeTV and in the years previous, obviously, but this year a real epidemic. And we still have not heard a definitive solution from the governing body, the UCI. Some clear guidelines to ensure a safer working environment for the cyclists out on the roads, and race promoters and the UCI have to adopt a number of measures, which not just myself, but many professionals have recommended. The teams organizations, the movement of professional cycling for credibility, and PCC, a lot of voices out there, and let's hope that the UCI in the off season can turn their attention to maybe the most pressing and dangerous part of professional cycling, and that's the interaction between the caravan and the riders. And the UCI has really dropped the ball throughout the year on this. And you know, Brian Cookson came in promising change, and this is one place where he could make a big difference. And meeting with race promoters constantly and the stakeholders, and suggesting clear guidelines, training for everybody that drives a vehicle in the caravan, when it's safe to pass, what the speed is when you pass, maximum speeds when passing, the protocol and awareness of where the riders most likely will be at any moment in the races. But so far, nothing from the UCI on this, and let's hope that they get to it before there's more injuries and, yes, even death. Antoine de Moitié dying because of a collision with a race motorbike earlier in the spring, and I'm really, really saddened that this is continuing to happen. Ashley Moolman-Pazio is recovering in South Africa, and that crash broke her pelvis. So 3 months off the bike, and best of luck to Ashley Moolman-Pazio in her recovery, and hopefully she gets back to her winning ways as soon as she's able, as soon as she recuperates and gets back on the bike and starts training again. Very tough competitor, and I'm sure she'll be back at the top the first chance she gets. All right, next up, the Musette Musings. Back in the headlines is Shane Sutton from British Cycling. This is what he had to say. If you recall, he resigned just before the Rio Games. He's the competition director of British Cycling, and a number of allegations leveled against him in the springtime of sexism and discrimination. Jess Varnish leveling some allegations of his sexism while he was the director of competition for British cycling. So Jess Varnish's, by the way, her comments and her allegations were backed up by Victoria Pendleton and Nicole Cook, and Shane Sutton resigned his position when British Cycling announced that they would convene an independent review to look into all of the allegations against Shane Sutton. He was suspended originally by British Cycling. It took them a while to do that after Jess Varnish had come forward, but British Cycling, I think, did the right thing at the time. And this is what Sutton has been quoted as saying recently in the Telegraph. As I have said all along, I am confident that I will be cleared of any wrongdoing. And if I am, I'd like to think that they would ask me to reconsider my resignation. I resigned when I did to take the heat off the team 100 days out from the Olympic Games. But I totally refute the claims. So Shane Sutton calling Jess Varnish a liar, and Victoria Pendleton and Nicole Cook, and I'm going to believe the women at this point. It's not easy. It takes a lot of courage to come forward and level these allegations against somebody as successful as Shane Sutton has been. So it's really disturbing that Shane Sutton would be so unapologetic and not even consider there's a possibility that some of the things he said might be upsetting to some of his athletes. And British Cycling, I hope they don't reconsider his resignation. I hope they let it stand permanently. And it'll be very interesting to see what the independent review finds in this situation. And believe me, there's plenty more to muse, plenty more musings on this, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come. But in the meantime, I think it's disturbing and sad that Shane Sutton would have nothing more to say about it than have just disregard these claims entirely. So best of luck to the women. And like I said before, when this story broke, I'm pretty sure these women have not come forward out of spite, out of malice, and they have almost nothing to gain by saying these things. And so I don't see them making this up. I don't see this being a figment of their imagination. I see this as what the situation was, how they described it to be in British Cycling. And if that's the case, I hope that British Cycling never engages Shane Sutton again in a position of responsibility. So that's my 2 cents on British Cycling. And 2 cents plus $3.98 more cents, I could buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Also in the news, in the meantime, the CEO of British Cycling, Ian Drake, has resigned. So Ian Drake saying that has nothing to do with the TUE controversy and the Shane Sutton situation, but the timing is it's a little bit curious, don't you think? You can write in the comment section and let me know whether or not you believe Ian Drake stepped down at an appropriate time or not. Let me know. That'll be interesting. I find the timing a little bit curious, and maybe he got wind of the independent review, and it will be a scathing rebuke of the working environment at British Cycling, and Ian Drake has cut and run. Let me know what you think. Time will tell anyways. So eventually we're going to find out, and that will be very interesting. Lance Armstrong, who I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, I believe, maybe a week ago. Time flies. Time flies when you don't get out of bed until 10:30 a.m. That's what I've noticed since the Vuelta. I'm still recovering, apparently. But Lance has pulled out of the conference he had scheduled to speak at in Dublin, Ireland. Lance suggested that Paul Kimmage conduct the interview. Paul Kimmage took umbrage. I suggested to Paul Kimmage that when a person is apologetic and wants to reconcile, it's our responsibility to facilitate that. So perhaps now Paul and Lance can get together and have an interview, clear the air, and hopefully have a reconciliation. Time will tell, but best of luck to both guys. Mark Cavendish, Vincenzo Nibali, and Chris Froome have all chimed in about the TUE controversy. Mark Cavendish reassuring everybody that cycling is the cleanest of all professional sports. And I tend to agree with Mark Cavendish on this. No other professional sport tests the athletes, has the whereabouts program, the Adams program, the biological passport, and the list of banned substances that goes on and on and on. Vincenzo Nibali, he explained he was stung by a wasp in the Vuelta in 2013, went on to win the stage, did not need a TUE, but if you do need one, and the sport allows, it shouldn't be as big a controversy as it is. That's neither here or there for me, but Nibali, I did not know he got stung by a wasp, and could have used a TUE probably if he was allergic, but did not need one, and that's an interesting point he brings up. During a stage race, if you do have an allergic reaction to a bee or wasp sting, should you be allowed a TUE? And I think that's one of the circumstances that you should be allowed if you absolutely need that. And some people are deathly allergic to that type of thing and need a TUE immediately, and there should be no controversy about that. And if I remember correctly, Fabian Cancellara, who was also named in the Fancy Bear leaks hacking incident where we found out about all these TUEs, also was stung by a bee and needed a TUE earlier in his career. And the UCI is not doing us any favors by keeping this secret. That's for me, is the bottom line. When there's an application for a TUE, publish it. And which TUEs are given and why, please publish that also. And we wouldn't be talking about any of these things. They would be long gone in the ancient past. We're talking about Tour de France 2012 for Bradley Wiggins that he won after having an injectable steroid to treat his allergies and asthma. And if people had known at the time, it could have been a little bit controversial. But it was within the rules, and we could have talked about it for the 4 years intervening since. But the UCI does not give any of us the chance to do that, and I think that is the main problem and will continue until there's more transparency by the governing body of the sport. There are some confidentiality laws that cannot be superseded, but when you're a professional athlete, especially in the sport of cycling, you, at this point, have forfeited the benefit of the doubt. And you have to prove that you are innocent of doping. Rather than prove, you have to prove beforehand, rather than afterwards. So for cycling to restore its credibility, transparency would go a long way, and Brand Cookson has failed, in my opinion, in what he promised to do when he was elected president, and that is to restore the credibility of the sport of cycling. And so he still has a lot of work to do, and the sport does, to do just that. All right, I've said that before. I'm going to continue reiterating it. The biological passport, that data is somewhere. I'm sure somebody's going to hack in there and publish it eventually. So I would say to the UCI, let's get ahead of this one. Let's not be constantly playing catch up and damage control all the time. Every time there's a doping controversy, the UCI is way behind. So let's get ahead for once, okay? All right. Tweet of the week is next. And it's a good one. This is coming to us from Alberto Contador. And this, I am going to christen this the swan song of the Tinkoff team. The Tinkoff team will vanish next year, but in the meantime, in the Abu Dhabi Tour, that was Alberto Contador delivering the Tinkoff swan song. And who knew? Alberto Contador can sing. I hope he's joining Trek Segafredo next year. I hope he keeps singing next year and into the future. That is quite delightful. A nice way to end this week's Broom Wagon. Comments. Keep them coming. Suggestions. Subscriptions. I'm not sure why, but some commenters on the forum don't believe me when I say if I don't get enough subscriptions, I can't do this anymore. Time is money is what I would say to them. Thumbs up, and please follow me on Facebook and Twitter so I can update you on a regular basis. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. Until next time, toodaloo. The main mountain ranges of France are all going to be in the Tour de France this year. It's going to be a great race. Let me know what you guys think about the race route this year, and who's going to win. I'm going to predict. This is my bold prediction.